This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. This is going to be a really fun episode. We've got an announcement for a last place punishment for a fantasy football league that's battling for $10K in charity. It's a phenomenal industry league. Can't wait to announce that. We're also going to learn about an awesome guest from FTN Fantasy. It's Colin McTamany. Welcome to the show, my man.
What's going on? We are past week 8, so it's nice to hop on here midway through the fantasy football season. I'm sure there's some tense people out there below 500, but it's good time to check in with everyone.
It certainly is. And I think with this kind of show, the focus is really about, getting to know people in the industry, getting to know your favorite analysts. Sometimes in fantasy, especially around this time of year, you can get a little apathy, right? Your team might be, just destined for last place because of injuries, because of bad luck. It's important to understand that the fantasy experience, the game, the fun of it is really the core. So if you're having a bad season, if you have a fun league and if you're doing things to kind of enjoy the experience, which is also getting to know people in the space, in the industry, I think you're in the right spot. So Colin, you've done an awesome job. You obviously love this game. I'm excited to have you on here for FTN Fantasy. Can you share what your role is over there?
Yeah, so I signed on with FTN back in March, which is a great time. We were a couple weeks before the free agency period for the NFL, so a lot to talk about then. Kind of had free reign with a ton of content creators over there, including Jeff Ratcliffe, Aaron Schatz. They kind of lead the way at the top of the team there. But as the season progressed and started and kicked off, I took over a couple articles a week. I do the wide receiver and cornerback matchups, which you can apply to pretty much any league, but it's important for DFS purposes, picking the right wide receivers for your lineups there, best cost, best matchup, etc. And then I do a stats dive as well. I look at stats from the previous week, weeks prior, and then look ahead and see what we can apply from what we learned and see how we can apply it to our lineups in the future. So that's been a lot of fun. And FTN has actually let me do some video content, which has been really cool. That's not something I was very good at or knew how to do at all, but they trusted me to kind of, take some time to learn how to do it. And I feel like I've kind of hit the ground running with it. So that's been a lot of fun, creating videos that people are sharing, liking, commenting on. It's just a little bit different, but a lot of fun.
I love it. Now, from a consumer perspective, what is it that people love about fantasy or with FTN? What is it that you enjoy about FTN as a brand and as a source of content?
Yeah, we can talk about fantasy football in so many different ways. I know a lot of people go off of gut feeling and vibe sometimes, but FTN Fantasy is really about the numbers. And I think that's what I've come to learn a lot about it. I've been playing since 2007. So, there's been things I've invested in, I've forgotten about, et cetera, throughout the years. But, kind of joining with FTN and seeing all the content that they have, I can see the route participation, air yards, just pretty much any number you can think of that's important. I use the NFL splits tool. Hey, how does Darnell Mooney play with Michael Penix and without Michael Penix? This past weekend was important. Obviously not very well with Kirk Cousins. So, there's a lot of things you can look at on FTN site. You get a subscription. There's a ton of different tools in there that if you have something in particular that you want to invest in, or maybe you don't even know about, they have it. So they also have the rankings, start, sit tools, all that stuff. But it really is next level when you talk about numbers.
Love it. Now you're a passionate Philadelphia sports fan. Talk about where that all began. Talk about growing up, some of your favorite teams and players, and how sports hit you early on.
Yeah, I think like most sports fans, it's almost inherited, right? It's where you grew up. Maybe you moved somewhere. Maybe someone, instilled a memory upon you about a certain team, because not everyone's all the same city all the time, which I get. Everyone has their own story. For me, though, it was simply my dad. He passed it down. I grew up in the Philadelphia area. I still live in the Philadelphia area, so I love all the Philadelphia sports teams. And selfishly, I'll say we're kind of in the golden age right now, but it certainly was not always that way growing up. I think my first early memory of Philly sports was the 2001 NBA Finals. Allen Iverson stepping over Tyronn Lue in the first game against the Lakers. So that was just a cool moment. I remember my dad freaking out about that. Obviously, the Sixers would go on to lose that series, but so many memories early on with Andy Reid running the Eagles, multiple NFC championships. The Flyers were good. The Phillies were good. There was always just a little bit of hope, but I've been there for the bad years too. But again, growing up, I always say with sports, it's almost like a storybook. You got to read all the chapters to finally get to that ending. And, it is obviously there's more to the series, but there has been so many bad chapters in Philly sports since I've been pretty much on this earth, to finally get that storybook ending with the Phillies in 2008, going back to the World Series in 2022, 2023. And then the Eagles, obviously, in 2017, 2018, when they finally won. That was just something I will never forget. Obviously, this past year was very special, but that first one, I'm sure you can relate as a Seahawks fan. When you see your team and the certain players and their stories, et cetera, hoist the trophy, it's unlike anything you'll ever experience, honestly, if you're a diehard fan.
For sure. No, I think that you guys did it in the right order too. This last time with losing to the Chiefs, then defeating the Chiefs.
Yeah.
For me, I'm still reeling from losing to the Patriots. On the goal line. Like, I wish that would have flipped. I wish we would have been like a yard short, give the ball to Marshawn, and then we come back the next year and destroy Peyton Manning. That would have been the right storybook,
right?
Ending chapter for me, but that's sports, right? There's good memories, there's bad memories. For you, what's the worst memory? What's the worst loss you ever experienced?
Oh my God! Well, I was born in 1992, so there's been quite a few. I think I'll go with the most recent. Super Bowl 57. It feels better now that we won Super Bowl 59 against the Chiefs, but Super Bowl 57. I wanted that one so badly for Jalen Hurts, the Eagles team. They were so much fun that year. They finally get there. It's one of the highest scoring Super Bowls ever. Jalen Hurts has such a fantastic game, and it comes down to, we can have a debate on it, but a ticky-tack holding penalty.
Yeah.
James Bradbury holding on to Juju Smith-Schuster's jersey. I just remember sitting next to my dad and turned to him. I said, "Are we really going to lose because of that?" Like that's. I just remember feeling angry. Sometimes you're crushed, sometimes you rip the Band-Aid early. Sometimes your team's down big. Hey, listen, Falcons fans were probably puffing their chest out against the Patriots that one year. That, I didn't have 28-3 bad, but yeah. And you figure the Eagles lost to the Chiefs that year in the Super Bowl. A couple months prior, the Phillies lost the World Series to the Houston Astros. So it was a really tough 3-month period for Philadelphia. I think that would probably be it, but I've had some good memories since.
Yeah, I know, and obviously the redemption definitely helps.
Yeah.
What is the single greatest sports memory you have?
I think getting chills is the first thing I thought of. So my dad, he's since retired, but he was fortunate enough to work for a paper company for 40 years, and they were very integrated in having season tickets to all 4 Philly sports so they could entertain customers. I know it's a huge privilege, but his company had seats 13 rows up from the 50-yard line at the Link, and we were fortunate enough to go to the Eagles divisional game against the Falcons and then the NFC Championship game against the Vikings the year they won the Super Bowl. So to go to those 2 games and then watch the Super Bowl with my dad, watch Brandon Graham sack Tom Brady, just putting that all together is really just one of the greatest stretch runs of my lifetime. I'll never forget that, having that experience with my dad, who, again, full circle, I inherited my Philly sports fandom from. I think that would have to be it.
Yeah, I think the best memories are those that you link to someone else, a family member, a dad. I mean, that's pretty special. I'm glad you got that. So when it comes to fantasy sports, when along the lines, I know you said 2007, but what was it that brought you to fantasy sports?
Yeah, I think my sports fandom, fantasy football is kind of passed down. You need someone, almost always, you need someone to introduce you to it, right? Hey, you want to play in a league? Sure. That for me was the beginning of sophomore year of high school. Obviously you go to high school freshman year, you don't really know anyone yet. So it's starting a league, school starts in September. You're not really starting a league when you get to high school. But so sophomore year rolls around, you kind of have your friend group. I got invited to a 14-team league for my
Nice.
first league, which if anyone's never played in a 14-team league, would not recommend at baseline unless you're really, really into it. But for your first league, absolutely not. So quick story. I go to my friend's house. It's a bunch of his friends, dads, they've had this league for a couple years now. I'm brand new. I'm sitting in the back corner. I have my magazine and I get the first pick. And this is a league where you write down who you want, you hand it to the commissioner, and he announces it. And I write down my pick, Reggie Bush, New Orleans Saints. Not the first overall pick that it should have been that year. It should have been Adrian Peterson. I hand it to the commissioner. He opens the slip and starts laughing. So I'm in the back corner, and when he announces it, I mean, everyone quite literally turns around and starts laughing at me. It was a horrible moment. So much so that I left that draft and I called my best friend and said, hey, you want to start a fantasy football league? Started a completely new league, 10 teams. And that's actually now my home league. And we're in year 19 right now. So from the ashes of that embarrassment of picking Reggie Bush first overall, 2007, I've now since created a home league, which has been running for 19 years. So that's kind of where it all began.
So you got invited to this league. You go to the draft, you get embarrassed, and you immediately start a new league, which is the home league, the same year. So you basically started your home league the first season you played.
100%. Yeah, awesome. I left that draft, and I think back then cell phones, you could only make so many calls per month, and that was one of my calls to my friend was, we're starting a league. Let's find some people because I need to redeem myself.
I love it. I love it. Now again, you probably play in a ton of leagues. I'm sure that home league is the one, right? That's the one that matters, right?
Yeah, everyone's got the one, right?
And do you have any traditions in that league? Fond memories of things you guys have done to kind of elevate the fantasy experience?
Yeah, at some point in the early 2010s, a couple of us decided to just treat it like Halloween and dress up. We all come up with team names. Sometimes it's based on pop culture. Sometimes it's based on how last year went. So some people started dressing up, in theme costumes. The year after I won, I was just Breakfast of Champions. I like breakfast. I was the champion. So I wore a bacon costume. So every year people are always dressing up, and it's always fun to see, what's everyone's team name going to be. But we take pride in getting together in person. It's an auction draft. And again, if you've never done an auction draft, that I recommend. That is next level. You're not just drawing a pick, waiting to see who falls to you. If you want a player, you've got the budget, you can go get that player. And we've been doing that since 2012. So that's kind of our tradition, dressing up, having a couple of adult beverages, and we bring in an auctioneer, an unbiased auctioneer. It's usually a sibling or a friend that's not in the league. And, having them see us dressed up, and they say it's one of the funniest days of the year because it's just a couple of idiots, drafting their teams.
I love it. No, that's awesome. Is there one person in that league that's your biggest rival?
It honestly might be myself. I've made some really bad decisions over the year. I haven't missed the playoffs in probably a decade, but I've been out in the quarterfinals, I think now for 5 straight years. So, but as far as playing someone, the game you circle on the schedule, there's a guy in the league. His name is Greg. He has the same team name every year. He's kind of developed a franchise, even though he's won 1 game or 1 year. But I've had some of my worst losses against him. I missed the playoffs way back when by like 0.3 points to him. He beat me 1 year with Antonio Gibson in the quarterfinals. Antonio Gibson played the Eagles in Philly. He was on the Commanders at that point. He rushed like 15 times for 20 yards, but he scored a touchdown. So this guy, Greg, beat me, and Greg was at the game. So he was sending me videos the whole time. So, while I want to beat everyone and sit at the top, when you beat, when I score a little bit more than him or see him lose, or I actually get to, defeat him, it feels a little bit better.
Down with Greg. What's his franchise? What's his name? His team
So
name?
He has a little bit of German and Irish, heritage. He's visited both countries. So he's the McCrouts. So it's a little bit of just 2 blends there of different cultures that he's inherited.
I love it. So for you, any favorite settings, formats in fantasy that you like to play?
Yeah, I think, again, drawing back to the auction, if you're going to draft in person, I highly recommend auction. Putting the stickers up on the board is certainly fun. You can still do that with auction. Once you spend the money and on the salary for the player, grab the sticker and pop it up there. But I think otherwise, something I like seeing new formats. I've seen some really goofy ones on Twitter and on the internet this year. When a quarterback makes a tackle, you get 100 points. I think that's super fun. I saw recently if your player does a backflip after scoring, you lose points. So I love those little like key things that you can watch for. But I think Guillotine is my new favorite.
Okay.
I've had a lot of success playing Guillotine League. For those that don't know what it is, you draft your team early on. It's like 18, 20 teams, whatever you can muster up. And the lowest score of the week gets chopped like a guillotine. You're out. All your players go into free agency, and the rest of the league get to pick up your players. So high stakes. Your season might end, right after Labor Day. But if you have the fortune and the skill to get to December and compete for the title, it feels really, really good that you've outlasted everybody.
Yeah, there's definitely a different rush with Guillotine. Watching that chopping block. End of Monday night. It's when it all kind of gets figured out, right? And then even the waiver wire is extra fun. And
you don't know who's going to spend what. I mean, who needs what? Who's got the buys? If you suffer an injury during the week, in redraft, it's like, I might lose this week. In Guillotine, it's like, I might die. I might get kicked out of this league.
Yeah. Yeah, and bye weeks. I mean, it's there. You look at your schedule. There's weeks that are like terrifying because that you got problems coming up. But yeah, Guillotine's a fun format for sure. Do you have an all-time favorite memory playing fantasy?
Yeah. I mean, I think winning my home league when I did was like a finally. I've been to quite a few championships and I've lost quite a few championships. Back in 2013, I finally won. We didn't do fractional points back then. Horrible mistake. And I won 94 to 93. Horrible finals. But Frank Gore punched in a touchdown on Monday Night Football right around Christmas. Well, 2 days later on Christmas Day, there was a stat correction. And my opponent gained a point. So we tied and he won the tiebreaker. So I had to give back the money. And I had to give back the trophy on Christmas Day to a guy that I tied. So that was horrible.
I went
to the championship the next year, lost that one, and then finally 2 years later got back to the championship and won without a doubt. David Johnson, I actually have his card up behind me. Anytime I win a championship, I like to buy a sports card of the player that helped me do it. So David Johnson's behind me, all-time memory, 2016. He was phenomenal that year.
It is funny with celebrating a championship. I'm a Seahawks fan. I won a championship because of Debo once, and I actually bought a Debo Samuel jersey. I've never touched it. I like despise it because I'm like, why would a Seahawks fan have a 49ers jersey? I mean, shout out to Jay Rice and the old school stuff, but at the same time, it was Debo carried me, right? He deserved that honor. So that's funny. That's funny. So starting content creation, obviously that's been in recent years. Way back when you first started playing the game, do you remember analysts and resources that you went to for fantasy content?
Yeah, I think it would be silly not to mention Matthew Berry. I mean, we all know who Matthew Berry is. When I first started fantasy football back in 2007, it was like a yearly tradition that I was going to Barnes and Noble or anywhere that had the magazines, and I was buying a magazine, and it was usually ESPN's. And Matthew Berry obviously was at ESPN for quite some time. And then I started listening to podcasts, and the first podcast I listened to for fantasy football was the Fantasy Football Focus, which is still going today. But that was Matthew Berry and Nate Ravitz. Ultimately, Nate left and was replaced by Field Yates, who's still on the show today. That's how I discovered Mike Clay and Daniel Dopp. And then Stefania Bell goes on with her injury analysis. So I discovered her. And it just kind of goes from there. You start to hear people mentioning, different analysts that they listen to and recommend. that's actually how I discovered the Scott Fish Bowl. They mentioned it on there one year. And I said, well, what is that? Why did they get to play in it? It sounds like I can play in it. So I think Matthew Berry is really where it all started for me. He had the Fantasy Life book that he published, which I'm sure you know about, published author yourself. But yeah, Matthew Berry now has his Fantasy Life company. It's just kind of cool to see it all develop and now get to kind of be some small part of that too by creating content on my own.
I love it. So what was it that inspired you to start creating content on your own?
I would say it was the COVID-19 pandemic, honestly. I think when everyone was locked up and inside their houses and looking for things to do, I think we saw a spike in fantasy sports, fantasy football in particular. It was a way for people to connect. It was something fun to do. Obviously, that season was a little wonky. No fans. People were on edge. But you had people that have never played before finally getting into fantasy football. And I was, more than usual, fielding texts from friends and family. Hey, should I start this person? What do I do with this? Should I trade this? And it was coworkers, it was friends, it was family. And I, every now and then you get a couple of those texts prior to. Everyone knows I'm into it, but it really started to pick up in 2020. So, 2021 rolls around. And I said, why don't I start trying to do this and reach out to these, companies and see if they'll take a chance on me. I had no experience, but I feel I'm a good writer. And I think I applied to about 20 to 25 sites. Hey, here's background. I've been playing for this long. Here's a couple sample articles that have nothing, or they were not prompted, but I wrote them anyway for you to check out. And a company, Fantrax, was really the only one that reached out and said, hey, we're willing to take a chance on you. Couple companies wrote back and said, hey, you don't have any experience, but these are great. Keep going. Very positive. Some didn't answer at all, and that's okay. I understand they probably get hundreds of applications a year, and I overshot my shot a little bit on some. But Fantrax really gave me a chance in 2021. So that was about April or so. I signed on in June, and I was with Fantrax for about 4 years and really worked my way up to creating, hardcore content for their platform, the waiver wire, bold predictions. I was doing a podcast for them for a little bit. So I really worked my way up, built up a resume. And then this past year, I was kind of looking for a little bit more. And I saw that there was an opening at FTN, and I really respect Jeff Ratcliffe's work there. A couple other guys that work there. So I applied, and they took a chance on me too, because, there's plenty of talented content creators out there. So to have the opportunity that they provided for me has been really special.
That's awesome. So what's been the most rewarding part of this journey in the fantasy community for you?
I think it's just been really positive for me. I used to really, really get upset when I would lose certain, like my home league. Having like one or two leagues, ironically, that you really care about. I used to really invest so much time and effort. And then when December rolls around and you come up short, you kind of feel like empty. I know that sounds, a little silly, but, when you invest as much time, making the ad drops, the text conversations with your league mates to get transactions done, you really do feel like a manager. And it's devastating when you lose. Since I've joined this content creation space, I'm now in 17 leagues. Now, that's a lot. It's a lot to manage, but not all of them are manageable. Some of them are best ball. Some of them are dynasty, and there's not many moves you're going to be making anyway. And I think just having so many leagues now, I can kind of look at fantasy from a broad perspective. When you just have one league, you're so hyper-focused on if Drake London's playing in week 8. Well, if he doesn't play in week 8 and I have him on 7 teams, it's like, okay, well, that is what it is. Everyone's dealing with this. I can manage those leagues and whatnot, but it's not as devastating. You're kind of just looking at the league from just a fan's perspective, because one person getting hurt, one person having a bad performance or a good performance is going to impact all of my leagues in one way or the other. It's not that I don't care. It's just that it is what it is, and I can only do my best. Obviously, I still care about my home league, but to just kind of discuss content from a broad perspective has been really the change in mentality for me. Maybe that's just getting older too, but I think that's been the biggest change.
Well, I think a lot of people, came on board during the COVID time. I love your approach when it comes to just making contacts and reaching out, and obviously you've landed some great opportunities for people that do want to get more involved in the space and kind of follow your footsteps or whatnot. What advice do you have?
Yeah, I've actually discussed with a couple people. I have gotten some people some opportunities. I've given some advice. I don't think I'm the know-it-all best advice, but I'm willing to at least have those conversations. So if anyone listening to this has any questions, DM me, reach out, whatever. I'll give you, any sort of tidbit you're looking for, or if you have a question, come talk to me. I think my best advice is just do it. There's so many people that, I'll wait till next season. The season's already started. No, just start talking fantasy sports now. Dip your toes in the water. It's week 9, but who should I pick up in week 9? Start tweeting, start writing things up, start recording yourself. Even if you don't put it out there, start getting those reps in. It might feel like a waste of time and nobody's listening, but they are paying attention. They will eventually, even if it's just one person. I've come to find if one person is commenting on my stuff, hey, should I do this? And I respond to them, even just that engagement, other people see that you're reliable, you're willing to talk. I'll talk to anyone that listens for fantasy sports. So my best advice is to just do it and, have somewhat realistic expectations. I don't think anyone should be sending a letter first time to ESPN and say, I love this stuff, hire me. But, there are so many platforms out there looking for people to even just do one tiny job. You could do that there, and you can maybe provide a service to another company. Next thing you know, you're making a video for this place, writing an article for that place. Just get involved any way, shape, or form. Go to fantasy football related events. The Scott Fish Bowl is a great example. There are live drafts. You don't have to draft live. Go talk to people, make connections. The Fantasy Football Expo. I know I've seen you there. Tons of fantasy football analysts there, tons of fans there. Everyone's just talking ball. Go to Canton, Ohio. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Fantasy Football Expo. So much fun every year. I think this year it might be in July. Great time of year. Training camp gets going. Everyone's drafting. Start just immerse yourself in it if you really are passionate about it.
And they're talking ball, but they're also talking life too. A lot of great connections, outside of just the game that brings people together, which is great. I think this community has been really special for a lot of people. For you, how have the relationships you've established over the last few years meant? How much have they meant to you?
Yeah, I think Stacked League is a great example of that. I know we're going to talk about it soon, but Jeremy's one of the guys that started this league. He reached out to me months prior and said, hey, I've got this idea. Is this how to, pick my brain on it? And I met Jeremy at the Scott Fish Bowl Philly live draft a couple years ago. So just building that trust. I mean, one of the first things we talked about was he asked me, hey, you're from here. I'm not really from here. Where can I get a good breakfast sandwich? I mean, very simple conversation. We still talk about Johnny Hots in Philadelphia, great spot that he went to. He said, hey, where should I go for a run in the morning? I said, well, don't go that way. That would be a bad idea to run that way. Run the other way. But yeah, just even simple conversations like that, building that relationship, however small, however, little we may check in here and there. It's still someone that, I can talk fantasy football with, but every now and then we kind of just, he's the Reddit moderator. We talk about, goofy stuff going on there. So I think that's really it is, you start developing these relationships that go beyond fantasy football because we are, just people at the end of the day. We're going to be right. We're going to be wrong, but we're all just trying to have fun and make the best of this game we play. That's
awesome. Now you mentioned the Scott Fish Bowl, the Philly live draft. I know you do a lot to help host that. Talk to me about that experience. What's that been like for you? I know it's been a really successful event for sure.
Yeah. So I started playing Scott Fish Bowl, I want to say 4 years ago. I jumped into my fantasy league. And that platform is obviously far different than the leagues playing on Sleeper. And then I found out that there were live drafts. I mean, it stinks when you find out something back in September, this live draft went on and you're like, well, now I got to wait till next year. But it was worth the wait. Found out the live draft was in Philly the following year and I went to it. It was at Xfinity Live near the Philly sports stadiums. So I was just kind of a guest there. Jeff Ratcliffe was actually there. I got to meet him for the first time, which is really cool. Tons of auction prizes, signed jerseys of different teams, hundreds of people, having a couple drinks, drafting their Scott Fishbowl teams. I fell in love with it. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And then the next year they were looking for someone to run it because the two guys that were running it could no longer do it. And I just thought, I can do this. I think I can do this. I'm willing to do this. I've got some ideas on how this can be a lot of fun. So I reached out and just volunteered. Hey, I'd be willing to run the Philly Live Draft. And that quickly, I had a venue. You get to find a local charity. The first thing that came to my mind was Connor Barwin, former Philadelphia Eagle. He has a charity called Make the World Better, which is aimed at improving public spaces for kids in Philadelphia, playgrounds, courts, etc. So, linked up with them, had them on board, as the recipient for our event. And then finding people to draft at the Philly Live Draft is not a problem at all. Trying to decide who gets to draft at Philly Live Draft is a challenge. And so much so, I'm working on expanding it this year. We've only had 5 drafts the past 2 years, trying to push for 8. We want to have 36 more people drafting this year, maybe more, depending on where we end up drafting this year. But kind of got involved doing that, finding the prizes for it, finding the venue for it, just seeing everyone line up, show up. And, I just remember being at my first live draft of a guest and, thinking how cool it was to create that experience for people once a year and see them have as good of a time, hopefully better than even I did when I first came around. Whether they've been doing it for years or their first time is just really, really cool. And I love doing it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Live Scott Fishbowl events. So cool. It's so neat to see who's local in your community. If you're able to get to one locally,
and who's willing to travel too.
Exactly. People travel to these events and they go long ways just to, get a different experience. The cool thing about SFB Lives is that every single draft's different. And if you think about it, you get really jealous because you want to experience this, you want to experience that. Every city has a different twist on it. It's been such a cool thing to see blow up. I got to host the first live draft in Seattle when we first started doing live drafts, and I hosted this last year in Seattle as well. But I've been down to LA for the Trophy Smack draft, and so fun. And they're all many little fantasy football expos, but so unique, as well. But you did mention the expo too. Obviously, a great event for the community. What are some of your favorite memories from the Fantasy Football Expo?
Yeah, I missed this past year. Unfortunately, I had a scheduling conflict. But I remember seeing videos and pictures of the expo when it first started. I want to say 2021 maybe, which is about the time I started creating content. I could be wrong on the year there, but that's when I at least discovered it. I drive out there by myself. I cross the state of Pennsylvania in my truck, listening to podcasts. I actually remember listening to this podcast that you had with Ronnie Evans on one year, maybe 2 years ago. That was really cool. And then I bumped into you and Ronnie at the expo. I think my favorite memory, it's kind of funny, but you're in that plaza, the Centennial Plaza, I think Friday night, everyone's, playing cornhole, talking. There's preseason games up on the big screen. It's a beautiful night. Well, then the storm clouds start rolling.
I knew you were going to mention the storm. Yeah.
And I just remember, oh my God, I found the food, and they're like, storm's coming. Just grab whatever food you want. And I just handed whoever a $20 bill, loaded up a plate of food, and then it just started downpouring. And I remember being huddled under this little tent, and I just remember seeing just certain analysts that are far bigger than I am. I'm like, I know you don't know me, but we're both huddled under this tent right now, getting poured on as I'm, eating hot dogs and pizza next to you. And then someone said, let's go to George's. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I'm in. Where is it? It's a couple blocks that way, but we got to run. I'm like, perfect. Let's do it. And I just remember sprinting with, 5-10 people to this bar and getting, drenched. I have a hot dog and pizza in my stomach. I'm like, I don't want to run right now, but I gotta just follow everyone's lead here. And then you finally get to George's bar, the door opens, and then there's everybody just packed in there, having a good time, not in the rain. And, circling my way around that bar and getting to meet people, Scott Fish, I had finally met him for the first time at George's, a couple other people there. I think that was kind of my favorite memory, first early memory of the expo is that bonding experience where everyone was just kind of struggling, but making the most of it at the same time.
I love it. I can picture that tent right now. You got Jason Beckeries and you got Matt Harmon shivering, right?
Yep.
Hilarious. Good stuff. You mentioned Jeremy, obviously with Reddit, huge person on Reddit. Big part of this stacked league. Obviously, we're going to talk about. But I know that because of your relationship with him, you've done more with Reddit. Talk about Reddit. A lot of people, that are kind of in the fantasy community that spend a lot of time on Twitter or X. They're not really aware of all that happens on Reddit. That's such a huge world. Talk about your experience with Reddit.
Yeah, I mean, Reddit was a thing. I mean, Reddit's been around forever. It's such a large. It's not really a social media platform as far as like posting selfies with your friends or sharing videos of your night out or whatever. But Reddit really is the largest internet community, in my opinion, out there. I mean, I'm on Reddit to talk Survivor, one of my favorite TV shows. Current seasons, past seasons, speculating for future seasons. I'm a big fan of a bunch of other TV shows, fan theories, etc. You can talk anything on Reddit, but the fantasy football Reddit is the place to be, in my opinion. I mean, Twitter is great. It's one of my favorites as well, but it has its flaws for sure, especially in recent years. Blue Sky's fine as well, but there are millions of people quite literally subscribe to the fantasy football Reddit page. And if you've got something to say, I should have mentioned this way earlier when we were talking about getting into content creation. If you've got something to say it on Reddit. There's going to be some trolls for sure, as there are, on any social media platform, but someone is listening. I was looking recently at a post I made and it said, percentage of people that are reading this post are from the United States, but then there's a percentage from Canada, United Kingdom, Australia reading your post. I'm like, oh, okay. So if I post something at 11 o'clock at night Eastern time, people on the West Coast are reading at 8 p.m. People in Europe are maybe going to read it when they wake up and have their, tea or coffee or what have you. So Reddit really is like a 24-hour fantasy football network. I slowly started to get into it a couple years ago. This year has been my biggest year for Reddit. I don't know how impactful followers are on Reddit, but I started August, I think, with like 20 people following me. I now have over 300. That's just people that are going to see my posts first and foremost when I put them out there. I've related this most recent draft class to Adam Sandler movie quotes, described how I feel about each pick based on a quote from an Adam Sandler movie. And I've now developed weekly, here's what you need to know, fast fact for every team. And that's gotten 250,000 views every week. I mean, that's mind blowing to me that people are, even if they're just glancing at it and just want to see, they're scrolling to look for one player. That's great. Getting eyes on it on Reddit is where it's at. There's tons of stuff there. So I highly recommend if you're a fantasy football manager, go to Reddit because there's tons of content. And if you want to get into it or you're already into it, you should be posting on Reddit.
I love it. Yeah. And Jeremy has done such a fantastic job of getting people that just aren't on Reddit, over there and kind of sharing that world with people in the fantasy community, which has been great. But speaking of Jeremy, let's talk Stacked. What is your role with Stacked? And from your perspective, what is Stacked all about?
Yeah, Stacked was an idea Jeremy approached me with and said, hey, I'm trying to create the biggest and best fantasy football tournament pretty much that's ever existed. Obviously Scott Fishbowl's 5,000 fantasy football players competing, etc. He wanted to create a league of 12 of the best experts out there that would be willing to compete for a charitable prize. And in this case, it's $10,000. And I said, whoa, how is this going to work? I mean, what are you talking about? That seems like a big ask. He goes, well, I've already got some of the, groundwork laid out. But there's different elements, content purposes that we want to start to implement into the Stacked League. I said, whatever you need, I'm in. That sounds awesome. He showed me who the 12 managers were. I said, this is legit. This is some serious firepower here. We've got Jake Seeley from The Athletic. We've got Greg Branos, who is the Coach Speak Index for people that may or may not be familiar with them. Kendall Valenzuela from Fantasy Life. There's tons of knowledge, experience, what have you, competing in Stacked. And the winner, each manager has a charity that they're playing for. It's almost like Celebrity Jeopardy, but celebrity fantasy football. And the winner, their charity will win a large portion of this $10,000 prize. But there's bounties along the way. Who stacked a quarterback with a player from the same team, we're going to donate to your charity. They didn't know about these bounties. There's just so many different elements to it. So my purpose for everyone out there is kind of like the field reporter, one of the field reporters. I know you yourself are involved from an audio perspective, interviewing the managers, but it's first year. So we were trying to get into it, trying to figure out what people want to know about. And I was speaking with Jeremy and I said, I think people are really, really interested in the moves these managers are making. So over time, over the first couple weeks, we've settled on that I do the waiver wire post on Reddit, full circle. So waivers process Tuesday morning. So today, as we're recording this, in Stack League. So there will be a post later today showing everyone on Reddit, here's what the managers in Stack League have done, who they've picked up, who they've dropped, how much money they spent to acquire those players. So when you go to set your waiver claims on Tuesday night in most formats, you can see what some of the best in the business have done already and apply it to your own leagues in certain scenarios. One week, a couple weeks ago, I was unable to post it on Tuesday. So I posted every transaction that happened on Friday and got some really positive feedback. Hey, this was great to see how they adjusted their moves as the week went on. So now I update it every day. Hey, here's what this manager just did. Here's a trade that just went down. So it's been really cool. It's been a really cool resource for fantasy managers to see, again, what some of the best in the business are doing and apply it to their own leagues. And it's been cool to kind of follow that and put that out there for people to see.
I love it. Yeah, waiver wires, they dropped this morning. You got Dylan Sampson, the top waiver wire claim. You got the cool thing with the waiver wire, especially, you know it because you're doing the content. It's been active. I mean, people are very active on this waiver wire. It's been fun to see like the range of bidding and everything. So highly recommend anybody who wants to kind of get a window into this league, see how these industry experts are doing it. It's been a ton of fun. What's been the most fun part for you just kind of being involved in this?
Yeah, I think there was a really rewarding moment, and I think this just encapsulates social media to a T. Kendall Valenzuela spent, I think, 25% of her $100 fab budget to acquire Quentin Johnston after week 1. And I remember making the first initial waiver wire post, and there were people that just like, you're chasing touchdowns. He stinks. What is she doing? What a waste. Well, Quentin Johnston's had quite the year. Obviously, this past week, he goose egg. But hey, listen, we're 8 weeks in. Things happen. Things change. Values change. But Kendall Valenzuela is in 4th place. And a huge reason for that is getting Quentin Johnston off of the waiver wire. That was a minute rewarding moment for me. But just to be able to report that and show people, here's the moves people are making. And then people immediately push back and say, well, that was a bad move. And then be proven wrong is just like, listen, I'm telling you, these people know what they're doing. And that was a really cool moment for sure early on.
I love it. Yeah, no, we're week 8, right? Through week 8. Kendall's been in first or second kind of the whole season, like tied for first, but just now dropped to 4th. So she's been crushing it.
Third most points though.
Yeah, you look at the standings, you got Dave Richard. He's been in first the entire season, coming off a loss here. So now you actually have 3 teams at 6-2. You got Dave Richard, you got Chris Harris, and Sigmund Bloom jumps up to that 3rd spot. He's been consistent all season. Kendall's in 4th, Ben Gretchen 5th, Andy Barron's in 6th. The bottom of this draft, I mean, you got teams that are 4-4, 4-4, 3-5, 3-5. Everyone's in contention.
100%.
We do have to talk about last place, though. We have Greg Branos has had terrible luck. It's a whole story. I did an interview with him last week. Check that out. There's a lot involved in this process. But he's at 1-7. He's battling Jake Seeley at 2-6. John Daigle's at 3-5. Justin Boone's at 3-5. But someone in this mix is going to be considered last place at the end of the year. There's going to be there's got to be somebody. There's always going to be someone that either has a really high opponent scoring average or they've just had some terrible luck, terrible injuries. Because again, these people, there's a great league. Stacked is a perfect name for it. But let's talk about last place. We do have a last place punishment. You are here to kind of share the details.
Yeah, so going back and forth with Jeremy, discussing with the managers a little bit, having one last place punishment is not for everyone. Not everyone is going to agree, especially when you have 12 people, different ages, different interests, different, comfortability levels. I get that. So we settled on 3. If you lose, you can pick one. We'll give you that at the very least. So here are the 3 options the last place loser, for lack of a better term, unfortunately, will have to choose from. And hopefully Greg is listening, but hopefully he climbs his way out of it. And a couple other people are on notice as well. So the first option is, you might have some steam to blow off. You might be frustrated. You can run a timed 40-yard dash and film it and post it to social media. Everyone's got different athletic levels. But listen, I've been there before, frustrated. You feel like you just want to go outside and scream. Go run a 40-yard dash, post it on social media. When people are wondering in December, January, why are you running a 40-yard dash? It's because you lost the stack league.
I will say, Jake Seeley is curious if an Achilles tear is covered by the league. That's undisclosed. We don't know that as of yet, right? We're looking.
Yeah, I don't know if we have injury guaranteed contracts in Stacked, but something that we can maybe discuss at a further date. Andrew Cooper also said, "Do we have to run the entire 40 yards?" Which I thought was great. I don't know how I'd do doing a 40-yard dash either, but yeah, maybe the film cuts out there. Number 2, a lot of these managers are like you and I right now on video podcasts, live streams any given week. The loser will have the option to wear a jersey of their least favorite team, despised team, what have you, for 2 weeks straight on their video live streams or podcasts. So if I were playing in this league as a diehard Eagles fan, if you gave me a Jackson Dart jersey or worse, an Eli Manning jersey, I would have to wear that for 2 weeks straight. I wouldn't want to do that either and have that on my digital footprint. And lastly, you can read a scripted message, a press conference, if you will, but it would be written by the league champion, and you have to post it to social media. That might be my favorite because I think there's a lot of fun things that can be done with that. It's harmless. It gives the winner a little added incentive there to, say what they want to say through the, voice of another. So that is hopefully what happens. But I understand if people, are okay just wearing a different jersey or maybe want to blow off some steam, run a 40. But I'm hoping the loser does pick the message press conference because I think that would be the best.
I agree. I think that is the best. I think it brings the whole league together. But if you want to run that 40, if you want to go, find an old jersey at a thrift store, or I don't know if you have one, or maybe someone can send somebody that jersey. But we'll see what happens. It's gonna be a battle. This whole league has been battling all season long. If you look at the rosters, and you again are going to know these rosters as good as anybody. Sometimes better than the other managers who are just fighting with their own rosters. Who's the team to beat in this league?
Yeah, I actually want. I got to refer to one of them because I do get them mixed up every now and then. Being in 17 leagues of my own, and then also looking at Stacked, it gets a little confusing. But I do want to give a shout out to Sig Bloom of Football Guys. If you read my weekly waiver wire posts on Reddit, I put who won the bid, how many bids there were, who the next highest bid was. I feel like I've copied and pasted Sig's name as far as, winning the bids or being second place in the bids more times than I can count at this point. He is one of the most active managers in this league, and rightfully so. He is in third place at 6-2. I really like his roster. Everybody has holes though, right? This could be a league in which the sixth place team, it could be Greg. goes on a run, gets in sixth place, and then wins the whole thing. We've seen it before in fantasy football where the best team doesn't always win, or the best team all year long doesn't always win. It's the best team in December wins. And speaking of December, Sig has Derrick Henry, and he comes alive in December almost every year. The Ravens' schedule is beautiful. He also has Jonathan Taylor, who raise your hand if you've been victimized by Jonathan Taylor this year in fantasy football. He just dropped 37 points on me in my home league. So that running back duo for Sig is really, really special. Dak Prescott, DK Metcalf, but then his wide receivers kind of fall off a little bit. He lost Mike Evans, but he was active on the waiver wire and picked up Tez Johnson. Deebo Samuel, Jameson Williams hasn't really hit for him, but could. So I really like Sig's roster right now. And I've mentioned her before. Kendall's roster, I really, really liked early on. I think if it gets healthy, she could go on a run too. She's currently in fourth place, but third most points. She is Puka, expected to be back after the bye this week. She is Drake London, out week 8. Probably a reason I think she lost in week 8. But she has T. Higgins. Chuba Hubbard has kind of fallen off a little bit, but she has Javonte Williams, unexpected great value that she grabbed in the draft. Bo Nix, obviously he had a historic game 2 weeks ago. Sam Laporta, she has a really well-rounded roster. But I also do like Jake Seeley. He's in 11th place. Jake Seeley of The Athletic. He's in 11th place, but I do like he has Garrett Wilson. He comes back, could be something. Nico Collins coming off a concussion. Great matchup this week against Denver, who just lost Pat Surtain. Jalen Waddle, Romeo Dobbs, his running backs are Kyron and Chase Brown. And then he has Daniel Jones, surprise quarterback this year. So I think Jake's roster is better than his record, and he could be the surprise team that rises up.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what team in the bottom 6 might be the one that makes the playoffs and makes a run. And so Jake Seeley's the one. I will say also Matthew Berry at the beginning of the year, he looked at the rosters. He predicted Dave Richard to be the winner. And he's been rolling, in the top spot the entire time with Mahomes at quarterback. He's got Achane, James Cook. He's got Amon-Ra St. Brown. A few other guys that have just really stepped up for him. But again, stacked. I mean, tons of great managers with teams, and they're fighting for it. So it's been fun to see, fun to witness, and I love this last place punishment. It's a great one. I think that hopefully they'll pick the one like you said with the press conference, because that could be really creative. But either way, I'm sure they're going to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
So beyond stacked, let's dive through some rapid fire questions. Get to know you a little bit more. I'll just throw out some questions. You can just rattle off some quick answers for me, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. Great.
All right. What do you enjoy most about what you're doing in the industry at this time?
I think looking back at 2021 when I started and where I'm at now, still growing, still learning, still seeing what works and what doesn't. I think right now, honestly, my presence on Reddit has been a lot of fun, the most fun this season. But, just having the opportunity to grow in the space with FTN, especially making those videos, seeing people consume my content a different way has been the most rewarding thing this season. And it's been a crazy season, so there's been a ton to talk about. So having people receive it, respond back, meeting new people, even over the internet, has been really cool.
I love it. What are your favorite hobbies and activities outside of sports?
Fantasy football takes up a lot of my time. So it's a hobby I kind of, make a little money off, side hustle for. But I love going to the gym. I like working out. I like going for runs, listen to podcasts while I'm running. Like going to concerts too. Me and my wife met at a music festival years ago. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of shows, some really, really big artists. So seeing a concert is really a fun way to, have something to look forward to throughout the year.
Love it. How about a favorite TV show?
Survivor. Honestly, I love Survivor. It's in season 49 right now. Season 50 is premiering in February. Fantasy football and Survivor kind of go hand in hand. It's very similar. So yeah, I think Survivor is probably my favorite.
Who's your all-time favorite contestant?
You're asking me something. It's 24 years worth of contestants. First name that came to mind was Jeremy Collins, firefighter from Boston, Massachusetts. He played a blood versus water season with his wife. She got voted out like immediately. He did not go on to win, but then he came back for Survivor Second Chances. people that have played before didn't win. And spoiler alert, he won that, and that was one of my favorite seasons.
Okay. How about an all-time favorite movie?
Oh man, favorite movie? I think Toy Story is a great movie. That's honestly one of the first things that popped into my head. I think like start to finish for its time, that was a great movie, but more adult, more mature movie to watch, as you get older. Shawshank Redemption is a classic. I love Shawshank.
Movie. Yeah, it's a good one. How about a sports movie?
Oh, Remember the Titans. I love Denzel Washington. It's obviously football. I think the story is great. Tons of meaning. It's timeless. That has so many great quotes too.
All right. How about a favorite food or meal?
I think I eat pizza 3 or 4 times a week, and that is not an exaggeration. But if I had to pick something to eat for the rest of my life, I think tacos or burritos. You can do so much with that. Yeah.
Okay. I love it. How about a favorite snack, a go-to snack?
Snack. I'm a big meal person. I eat large meals throughout the day, but if I'm going to have a snack, guilty pleasure of mine, extra toasty Cheez-Its.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about extra toasty though? Got to be extra toasty.
Extra toasty is the key. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. How about a favorite beverage?
I really only drink. I got coffee, Super Bowl champion. I got my water, and I do love me some craft beer. I really don't drink much else, but a black coffee in the morning. I'm such a fan of coffee that you start thinking about it the night before. Like I can't wait to wake up and drink coffee. I honestly think it might just be a cup of black coffee.
Can't beat that for a lot of people. I love it.
No.
You mentioned concerts and shows. Do you have a favorite band or musician?
Yeah, I think I really started getting into music. The Red Hot Chili Peppers were probably my favorite band for a really long time. I think their catalog is just so unique, from where they started to where they are now. They're still doing it. But My Morning Jacket, I don't know if many people know who they are. They're kind of like a Southern rock band. I just saw them actually a couple weeks ago. They've been around for a while. I discovered them at a music festival. I've probably seen them about 20 times now. Which, good reminder, if you have a favorite musician and they're still touring, go see them. I know it's expensive, but you never know when they're going to stop or, when they're going to stop touring or something worse could happen, etc. Go see your favorite bands while you still can. I've seen Foo Fighters with my dad, one of my favorite shows. Dave Matthews Band, another great show. But I've seen Paul McCartney, Billy Joel, Tom Petty. Just pay the money and go see them. It's worth it.
Great advice. Now, favorite vacation you ever been on?
Last year, I went on my honeymoon. Me and my wife went to Italy. We saved up a bunch of time off and a bunch of money, and we spent about 20 days in Italy. That was just incredible. Went to so many different places, so many unique places. I will never forget that trip, and getting to do it with her. I mean, she planned the whole thing. I was just kind of along for the ride. So that kind of made it a little bit more enjoyable too, to just kind of, what does she have in store for us? But, driving through the country, we were on a boat at one point. It was just so cool to go to a different country and experience that.
How about a bucket list travel destination?
Bucket list?
Yeah. Like what's the next spot you want to go to?
Yeah. I mean, my last name is McTamany, pretty Irish. Never been to Ireland. That is definitely up there. But I will say, for a football related podcast, I love traveling to see different football stadiums. Kind of lost that opportunity a little bit with COVID, but I've been to New Orleans last year. I went to Seattle the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Lambeau Field, highly recommend. Been there. I think the stadium I have yet to be at is Arrowhead. I want to go to see Arrowhead in Kansas City.
Yeah, it'd be fun just to kind of see the environments and just to kind of get. Yeah, I like that for like college. It's something I want to do is get to college, campuses and see some of those experiences.
Yeah, see the traditions, how people tailgate. What they've got going on in the stadium. The game is the game, but there's something to be said about playing. What is the home field advantage like?
Yep. Yeah. Well, I got to say, we got to circle back to Italy. I just went there this last summer for my wife and daughter for 20 days or so too. So let's talk about what did you do? Like, where did you go?
Yeah. We flew there and we went to Venice first, which Venice, I had no idea what to expect. Venice is on water. I mean, there's no cars. It's all boat travel. little taxi boats, riding around, what have you. So we started there, and that was really cool. And, with the way climate change and stuff like that, some people predict Venice may not even exist decades from now. So that was, tough to hear, but really cool to, see it in the moment. We went to Florence. We went down, Italy looks like a boot. We went down to where the heel is, like the very tip down there. That was probably my favorite thing, because that's like the summer vacation for people in Italy. And
yeah,
we went in September. No one was there. It was like a ghost town. So we just kind of had free reign there, driving around, going to beaches. The food, I mean, the way they structure their meals, I'm a bigger guy. I love to eat. I mean, you get an appetizer, you get a pasta, you get an entree, you get a dessert, cracking bottles of wine. I mean, that was just fantastic. And especially you're on your honeymoon, there's no guilt either. You just, yep, keep it coming. Let's go.
Just living life. That's good.
Yeah.
Where was the best food in Italy that you experienced?
The best food was, if not southern Italy, there was a small like village in the mountains we went to. The name of it escapes me right now, but I mean, we stayed at this woman's house, like an Airbnb almost, and she made us like breakfast in the morning. That was fantastic, because it was just homemade food from her. And then we went to a couple restaurants there, and that was just out of this world. But Venice had some really good meals early on, and that to kick off our trip.
Okay,
you just gotta look them up. Do your research and kind of just go off recommendations, unless someone has something for you.
Yeah, we found Florence had like the best restaurants.
Yeah,
and we covered some territory. Did you get down to the Amalfi Coast and like Capri in that area, or did you went down to the boot?
No, we went down to the boot. We were trying to decide if we wanted to do the Amalfi Coast. I think time of year wasn't great. We did do Florence, though. I got a sandwich in Florence that I have a picture of it. I was holding. It was bigger than my head. It was
incredible.
I forgot about that sandwich, and now I'm thinking the sandwich might be the best thing.
Those sandwiches in Florence are unbelievble. No, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It was insane, and thank God we did so much walking, because I didn't feel horrible after it. But seeing the Colosseum was cool. We did a little private tour in Rome. We found some guy for like $200 that would just walk us around Rome at like 6 a.m. before anyone else was like buzzing around. So that was really cool. Florence was cool. I forget what the church there is. What's that big?
I forget. The name doesn't come right to my head, but
I know I've got it all written down somewhere. But just seeing the architecture is just something so different. I've been to London. And London and Philly are kind of similar, because obviously, they came over here, and Philly was one of the first big cities, kind of designed like that. But Italy is just different. I mean, it is so cool to be over there and just see how things were. I don't know, just different.
I love it. Well, I'm glad we got a little chat about Italy there. The message there is just explore.
Yep.
Check out this world. A lot of great experiences out there. Glad you got to experience that.
Yeah.
Before we close things out, anything else that we haven't covered that you want to share?
No. I mean, I will say I'm wearing a Sixers shirt right now. I don't know if anyone knows, but they are 3-0. So I just want to plug that real quick. Trust the process, and I think that's something that you can apply to your fantasy football teams too. I'm 3-5 in my home league. I'll be humble. I'll humble myself for a second. 3-5 in my home league, 7th place, but just make the playoffs. Make the playoffs. Anything can happen.
Well, yeah, I think I'm 1-7, because I had Malik Neighbors, I had Joe Burrow, I had
the Burrow injury.
I have Trevion Henderson, and a couple other injuries. All these injuries and a bust, and all of a sudden I'm in first place, and the guy that's perennially in last place is in first place. I'm in last place. He's in first place. Fantasy doesn't make sense, but have fun.
Do you still have Trevion Henderson?
I still do. I got Ramondre too, but it's been terrible. It's one of the weirdest things I've witnessed in fantasy is how much of a bust and experience that's been.
Yeah.
It's not like it's never happened before, but I definitely had higher expectations.
Oh yeah.
And it's sunk my season, but the message there is still there's ways to enjoy a fantasy league.
Oh yeah.
Have fun, make fun of people, make it fun, get engaged with your league members. Because there's more than just winning. Now, although obviously winning is huge. It's the motivator. But there's a reason fantasy is so special, and it's the experience, it's the league, it's all that. So
yeah, there's a guy in my home league right now who's 8-0, and I'm trying to psych him out. Hey man, no pressure, but it's your league to lose.
He's not winning. He's not winning.
Trying
no
to mess
way.
with his head a little bit. So maybe he'll make a lineup decision if I face him in the playoffs where he chokes. And
exactly, that 8-0 team will fall.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, it was a pleasure to have you on here. I can't wait to see what's next for you in this fantasy community. Looking forward to seeing you in Canton, hopefully this next summer.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see more of this. What happens with this stacked league. Love to be a part of it with you. It's been a ton of fun. Yeah,
I have to hop off here and hop onto Reddit right now and do that waiver wire piece so people can set their claims tonight. So it's great to talk about it. Great to talk fantasy football. Pleasure having this opportunity to hop on the mic here and talk with you, Kev.
Right on, my man.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.